Well, look who we've managed to drag off the streets to do today's Crucible catch-up. He absolutely loves the Crucible and knows a thing or two about it. It's Barry Hearn, the boss. Barry, let's talk about Ronnie. One of your favourite subjects, I'm absolutely convinced. What did you make of yesterday? He started 5-3 up. Yeah. Carter comes back to 7-all, and then we see more flashes of brilliance as Ronnie re-establishes the two-frame lead.
I think you summed it up there with the flashes of brilliance. I mean, what we're seeing in patches is vintage Ronnie, but there's patches. So the door's still open, obviously, because Ali Carter's a great player and a great match player. Ronnie, I'm sure he has the moves in hand, but my God, I think we could have a very exciting final session here if Ali gets amongst the balls. Ronnie is looking as if he's warming to the task, but he's not the finished deal yet.
We haven't seen his best yet this year's championship, have we?
Well, we've seen it in bits and pieces, I think. That's the thing. You know, we're not seeing the consistency. We've seen brilliant break building, as we expect from Ronnie, and unbelievable misses. You know, tactically, he seems to be thinking it through. He looks alert. He looks as if he's concentrating on everything. He's obviously here to do a job. And he's got his nose in front. That could be significant. You know, even those two frames gives you a chance to settle. Ronnie could come out and win Bosch and just win the next four and be through. But if Ali wins the first one of the session, you could have a game on your hands.
Ronnie, however we try and talk about the other 31 players who started this championship, Ronnie is pure box office, isn't he?
Of course. I mean, Ronnie's Ronnie. You know, Ronnie's been like it. He's been pure boxer since he was 12. He's, you know, he dominates the conversation amongst snooker because of the talent he's got. You know, he is without doubt the most naturally gifted player the game's ever seen. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever about it. And he has a vulnerability which makes him attractive as well, because you're sitting on the edge of your chair and you don't know what's going to happen. And there are times when I wonder whether Ronnie knows what's going to happen. You know, he's made no secret of the fact that he's not the finished article coming in. You know, he's had a year off, and the media stories, the hype that goes behind it. You know, can Ronnie win after a year off? How good does that make the other players? Will he get found out as the tournament goes on, because it is a marathon, not a sprint? Consistency is the key at the Crucible. Does Ronnie have it? All these questions make him unmissable, and that's why Ronnie O'Sullivan's special.
If he were able to get across the line against Ali Carter, and let's hypothesise for a moment that he gets into Sunday's final and he wins it on Monday night, would that be the greatest triumph in Crucible history?
I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, any other player that had a year off, you'd have to say would have no chance whatsoever in this World Championship. With Ronnie O'Sullivan, you don't know, which is a huge compliment to the man himself. And, you know, the one thing which we do know, you know, he's got a tough one with Ali Carter. There's no easy games at the Crucible, but I think that Ronnie will get better and better during the tournament the longer it goes. You know, there is some rustiness out there, and he'll be the first to admit it because he's been absent from the tournament schedule. But he's been there before. He's bought the T-shirt at the Crucible. I don't think he's going to hand that T-shirt back without a fight.
Let's talk about a match happening in the bottom half of the draw. Ding Junhui was taken by surprise by Mark King. King won the first session 6-2, but yesterday Ding took 7 of the 8 available frames, and that dream, that goal of a first Chinese world champion is still alive for Ding.
You know, you feel a bit of sympathy for Ding. He's got the weight of 1.8 billion people on his shoulders. You know, they expect so much of him in China. You know, he is a national hero. He's been a great pro for 10 years. He's won a lot. He hasn't won the World Championships. We're all saying China's going to take over the world, and yet we only see Ding and Marco Fu representing Asia in the final stages of the Crucible. Where did they all go? So more and more pressure gets lumped on Ding to deliver. 6-2 down, to me, was a session where Mark King played out of his socks. We know he's a tough competitor. I used to play his dad at Romford. His dad was a tough competitor. It runs in the family. But Ding's got a bigger game than he brought to the table on that first session. It looked to me like there was a man with the destiny of a nation on his shoulders in that first session. 6-2 down, suddenly the pressure is off him. And he went out and played 1-7-1, turned the game on his head. It's not over, but he turned the game on his head. And that's because he's a class player. If he gets past Mark King, Ding has a really good chance of making the final.
And that would be absolutely huge for Chinese snooker, because of course it would be even better if he won, but to get a Chinese player into the final,
well,
at the very least, would be amazing.
We saw it at the Masters, didn't we, when Ding fought when he played Marco Fu, you know. It did good numbers over here. It did massive off-the-wall numbers right through Asia. And, you know, there's no question about it. Every country needs their own heroes. You know, we're crying out for, you know, a top German player to come through, a top South American player to come through, at the very top end of the structure within World Snooker. Ding's been there, and I suppose his critics would say for the ability he hasn't delivered yet. And that pressure actually gets more and more the longer it goes before he lifts the big one. But he has the game to do it.
A quick word on Ricky Walden and Robert Milkins. Milkins created a lot of publicity earlier in the championship because he came in here and said, listen, my life was in the gutter. I owed 20 or 30 grand. My mum died, my dad died, my wife left me. I had a couple of mates took me in after I got evicted, and I'm back. Now, he's got a tough match against Ricky Walden, but those kind of stories and that level of honesty really endears players to the public, doesn't it?
No question. I mean, the Milkman is a little, you know, he's a story on his own, isn't he? But at the same time, in a way, when he's had such a tough ride, this kid, and he's up against Ricky Walden, and Ricky's already a winner on the tour. He's a good player, good, solid player. I think Robert is looking at. I don't think he's got any pressure on him. I think it's a tough. He's going to have to make it a scrap. I don't think he's the greatest break builder, the greatest strategist that's World Snooker has seen. But he's come from such a bad run in his own personal life that, in a way, it's like an escapism now. He's at the table. He hasn't got a worry in the world, does he? He's just biting balls. And if he can keep that attitude, you don't write him off. I mean, he's not the favourite to win, let's make sure. And if he didn't win, he'd turn around and say, I've still had a fantastic campaign. Got to the last 16 at the Crucible, within a whisper of a quarter-final. Ricky will have something to say about it, but Ricky himself Ricky's the favourite, and he'll feel favourite pressure. I think that Robert Milkins may make him run a little bit closer, because he's a little grafter. He's a gritty little individual. He's been through a lot, but that's outside. Now he's on his patch, and all he's got to do is keep his focus. If he keeps his focus and plays, he'll pose questions to Walden. There's no doubt in my mind.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Barry. I know you're
Pleasure.
a busy man. We managed to grab the boss. Join us again tomorrow as we do another Crucible catch-up. We're edging closer and closer to a dramatic climax to this year's championship.